We were celebrating our wedding anniversary with family at an upscale restaurant. When I went to the restroom, I caught a glimpse of my husband adding something to my drink. When I came back, I quietly switched glasses with his sister, the one who had always hated me and never missed a chance to humiliate me. But 30 minutes later, I remember that night in vivid detail. The glimmer of restaurant lights reflecting on the polished table, the clinking of glasses, the quiet hum of conversations around us. 20 years of marriage. 20 long years beside a man I thought I knew better than I knew myself. James smiled as he raised his glass, but his eyes were cold, like shards of ice. We celebrated our anniversary every year, but this time felt different. On the surface, everything looked perfect. A fancy restaurant downtown, crisp white tablecloths, exquisite food. James's whole family gathered around one table. His mother, Elizabeth, with her perpetually pursed lips. His father, Robert, silent and lost in his own world. And of course, his sister Samantha, his beloved only sister, watching me with thinly veiled disdain. For 20 years she never let me forget that I wasn't good enough for her brother, that someone like me didn't belong in their aristocratic family. I excused myself and left the table. I just needed a few minutes alone to pull myself together. I spent nearly 10 minutes in the ladies' room, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Fine lines near my eyes, a few silver strands woven into my once fiery red hair. At 42, I still looked good, but time had started to leave its mark. Maybe that was it. Maybe James had started looking at younger women. That thought had been eating at me for months now, ever since his behavior began to shift in subtle, unsettling ways. As I returned to the table, I paused behind a column. Something caught my eye. James, thinking no one was watching, picked up my wine glass and poured something into it from a tiny packet he had hidden in his hand. The motion was so quick I almost missed it. My heart leapt into my throat. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. My husband, the man I'd spent 2 decades with, had just slipped something into my drink. I leaned against the column, trying to steady the shaking in my knees. What was it? A sedative. Ridiculous thoughts raced through my mind like a storm. Why would he do this? What was going on? Frozen in shock, I watched as James leaned in and whispered something to Samantha. They had always been close, too close. Always a team, especially when it came to pushing me out. Then the decision came to me, like someone whispering it in my ear. I'd go back to the table, smile, act like everything was fine. And when the moment came, I'd swap the glasses, mine for Samantha's. Let her drink whatever his precious little family had prepared for me. I wasn't going to be their victim. Once I made the decision, a strange calm settled over me. I smiled at my reflection in the column's mirrored surface, and walked back to the table, wearing a mask of carefree ease. After 20 years, I'd become a decent actress. I had to be. In this family, gray sun to pressure was everything. I'd swallowed Samantha's insults more times than I could count, pretending not to hear her jabs. I'd turned a blind eye to my mother-in-law's disapproving stares. Even after all these years of marriage, she still thought James had made a mistake. James greeted me with a smile, but I noticed the tension in his shoulders. "Everything okay, darling?" he asked, helping me back into my seat. I nodded and smiled, making sure it reached my eyes. "Of course. Just a little tired." Samantha, never want to miss a chance, jumped in immediately. "Emily, you don't look well. Maybe you and James should call it a night. Anniversary or not, if you're not feeling great." She didn't finish, her thin lips curving into a faux synthetic smile. "Thanks for your concern, Samantha, but I feel just fine," I replied evenly. "Though I think you should try this lovely wine. It goes beautifully with your dress." I gestured to her deep burgundy gown and lifted my glass, pretending to take a sip. Samantha, always eager for a compliment, especially one about her impeccable style, smiled with satisfaction and reached for her own glass. Now all I had to do was wait for the right moment. The waiter brought out the main course, and everyone turned their attention to the food. I quietly set down my glass, pretending to search for something in my purse. Then, while Samantha was animatedly telling my mother-in-law about her latest trip to Europe, I made the switch, fast and discreet. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. James gave me a strange look, and for a second, I thought he'd caught on. But he said nothing, just cut a piece of meat and continued chatting with his father. Samantha, finishing her story, raised her glass. "A toast to the happy couple," she said with a smile that never reached her cold eyes. "To James and Emily. 20 years together is no small feat." "Do you both?" echoed her parents. I watched as Samantha brought the glass, my glass, to her lips, and took a generous sip. Then she smiled at me from across the table, her eyes gleaming with such smug satisfaction that I hesitated. Had I made a mistake? Had I imagined the whole thing? Maybe James hadn't put anything in my drink at all. The next 30 minutes dragged on endlessly. I barely touched the wine in Samantha's glass, just pretended to sip. The conversation drifted from family updates to work and future plans. James spoke about the expansion of his business, while Samantha chimed in, as usual, eager to show how in the know she was about everything her brother did. Then, suddenly, she went silent mid-sentence. The hand holding her fork trembled and froze in the air. A strange spasm crossed her face, and her eyes widened. Whether in fear or shock I couldn't tell. "Samantha, are you okay?" James asked, worry flashing across his face as he noticed the change in her first. Samantha tried to speak, but only a hoarse sound came out. She clutched her chest, red blotches spreading across her skin. Her fork clattered onto the plate. I don't feel well," she finally managed, just before her eyes rolled back and she began to slide from her chair. It all happened so fast, I didn't even have time to process what I was feeling. Shock. Terror. The horrifying realization that there was something in that glass, and now Samantha had taken the hit. James leapt toward his sister, catching her limp body. My mother-in-law screamed, drawing the attention of the entire restaurant. "Call an ambulance. Someone call an ambulance now," James barked, his voice trembling with panic. I sat frozen, unable to move. As I watched the waitstaff rushing around, the manager on the phone with emergency services, my mother-in-law sobbing over her motionless daughter. And through it all, one thought kept echoing in my head. What have I done? But even through the horror, a colder, sharper truth cut through. What have my husband tried to do to me? By the time the ambulance arrived, Samantha still hadn't regained consciousness. The paramedics quickly lifted her onto a stretcher and began asking questions about what she had eaten or drunk. James, pale as a sheet, answered haltingly, avoiding eye contact with me. "I'll go with her," my mother-in-law said, grabbing her purse. "So will I," James chimed in immediately. I stood up. "I'm coming too." James looked at me like he'd just remembered I was there. Something flickered in his eyes, fear, anger, maybe even disgust. I couldn't quite tell. "No," he said sharply. "Stay with my father. We'll call with updates." I opened my mouth to protest, but my father-in-law gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let them go. We'd only be in the doctor's way." I watched them leave, James supporting his sobbing mother, the paramedics wheeling Samantha out. The restaurant doors closed behind them, and suddenly it was just me and my father-in-law at the table, surrounded by half-eaten food and untouched glasses of wine. Robert let out a long sigh and gave me a thoughtful, lingering look. "Strange, all of this, isn't it?" he said quietly. I couldn't tell what he meant. Did he know something? Was he suspicious of me? Or was he suspicious of his own son? Yes. Strange, I agreed, unsure what else to say. Robert nodded like I had confirmed something he'd been thinking. He motioned to the waiter. "The check, please. And call us a cab." We rode home in silence. I stared out the window at the city lights flashing past, my mind racing. What had been in that packet? Poison. Drugs. But most of all, why? Why would James try to poison me, and on our anniversary no less? Right there, in front of his entire family. My thoughts drifted through the years we'd spent together. When had things gone wrong? When had the crack in our relationship widened into a canyon? We met when I was 22, and he was 27. He was a young, successful businessman from a wealthy family. I was just a girl from a small town, new to New York, studying and chasing my dreams. We fell for each other fast, and within 6 months, he proposed. His family opposed our marriage from the very beginning, especially Samantha. She was 2 years older than James, and had always taken it upon herself to guide her little brother. The day he brought me home to meet them, I could feel her dislike instantly. She looked me up and down like she was inspecting a used car and turned to James. "You sure about this?" She didn't even ask me, just him. Like I was an object he was thinking about purchasing. But James loved me back then. At least I thought he did. He ignored his sister, his parents, everyone. And we got married, despite all of their objections. The first few years were happy. We had a daughter, Catherine, and I hoped that would soften his family's attitude toward me. But it didn't. They adored Catherine, doted on her, but I remained an outsider. Over time, I learned to live with it. I learned to smile through Samantha's biting remarks. I learned to ignore my mother-in-law's cold stares. I learned to cherish the rare moments of warmth from my father-in-law, who always seemed just a little more kind than the rest. And I learned not to notice how James was slowly pulling away. How he stayed later, worked more often. How our conversations became strictly about chores and logistics. How his hugs started to feel more like obligations than affection. Catherine grew up and went off to university abroad. For the last 2 years, she had lived in England, only coming home for the holidays. With her gone, the house felt even emptier, even more foreign to me. "We're here," the taxi driver said, pulling me out of my thoughts. My father-in-law paid the fare, and we got out in front of the house, a large estate in Westchester. A house that had never really felt like mine, even though I'd lived in it for nearly 20 years. "Do you want me to come in with you?" he offered. "You shouldn't be alone right now." I looked at him, surprised. That was probably the most considerate thing he'd ever said to me. "Thanks, but I'll be okay. You need some rest too." He nodded. "All right, but call if you need anything." I stepped into the empty house and instantly felt the weight of the silence. Normally it didn't bother me, but tonight, every creak, every tiny sound made me jump. I turned on the lights in every room, as if they could somehow keep the terrible thoughts from flooding in. What if Samantha died? What if I just caused someone's death? Sure, she'd never been a friend. She'd done everything she could to make my life miserable in this family. But I hadn't wished her dead. And what would I say when James came home? "Sorry, darling, I saw you slip something into my drink, so I gave it to your sister instead." No, of course not. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so badly the glass tapped against the counter. I had never felt so lost and afraid in my life. The phone rang so suddenly I jumped, spilling water everywhere. James's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and answered. "Yes, Emily," he said. His voice was strained, almost flat. "Samantha's in the ICU. The doctors say it's poisoning. They pumped her stomach, but she's still unconscious." "Oh my God," I breathed. I didn't know what else to say. How could that happen?" "I don't know," he said after a pause. "Maybe it was the wine or something in the food. Mom's hysterical. I'm staying here overnight." "What about you? Are you okay?" "I'm in shock. Just like you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please keep me updated, all right?" "Will do." Then, after a beat, he added, "Emily, you didn't drink from your glass, did you?" My heart skipped a beat. "No, barely touched it." "Why?" "No reason. Just asking. The doctor said everyone at the table should monitor how they're feeling." "I'm fine," I said, though I knew it wasn't true. I wasn't fine. I was terrified, disoriented, and shaken to my core. "Okay. I'll call if there's any news." He hung up, and I stood there in the kitchen, clutching the phone. There was something in his voice. Yes, he was scared, that was clear. But there was something else too. Relief. Relief when he heard I hadn't drunk from my glass. I went upstairs to our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My thoughts were spinning, my heart pounding. I had to do something, but what? Call the police. And say what? That my husband tried to poison me, but his sister ended up drinking it because I switched the glasses. Suddenly, I remembered something. Months ago, I had accidentally overheard a conversation between James and Samantha. They hadn't realized I'd come home early. I was walking up the stairs when I heard their voices coming from his office. "You need to deal with this, James," Samantha had said. "You've dragged it out long enough. The situation's only getting worse." "I know," he replied, sounding tired and irritated. "But it's not as simple as you think. There's no easy way out, and you know it. But the longer you wait, the messier it'll be. Samantha, I can't just—" He didn't finish the sentence. "It has to be done in a way that doesn't raise suspicion. Time's running out, brother. If you won't handle it, I will." Back then, I thought they were talking about business. Some deal gone bad or a client issue. But now, those words echoed in my head with a terrifying new meaning. It has to be done in a way that doesn't raise suspicion. What if they were talking about me? The doorbell rang, and I jumped. I checked the time, it was after midnight. Who could possibly be at the door now? James had said he was staying at the hospital. His mother was there too. My father-in-law. But why wouldn't he call first? I walked downstairs, approached the door, and looked through the people. A police officer stood on the porch, young, serious, in full uniform. My breath caught in my throat. Had someone called the police? Did they already know what happened at the restaurant? Trying to keep my hands from shaking, I opened the door. "Emily Prescott?" the officer asked. "I'm Officer Taylor. May I come in? We need to talk." I stepped aside silently, letting him in. One thought echoed in my mind: they know. They know everything. "Please have a seat," I said, gesturing toward the living room. "What's going on?" Officer Taylor remained standing. "We received a report from the hospital. Your relative, Samantha Prescott, was admitted with signs of poisoning. The doctors believe it wasn't food-related. They found traces of a potent substance in her system." I sank into a chair, feeling the ground slip from beneath me. "That's awful. But why are you here?" "Why me?" "We're interviewing everyone who was at your table. Your husband mentioned you returned home. I just have a few questions." I nodded, trying to stay composed. "Of course. I'll answer whatever I can. Did you notice anything unusual in anyone's behavior at dinner?" I swallowed. Should I say it? Should I tell him I saw James put something in my glass? But then I'd have to explain why Samantha drank from it instead. "No. Nothing out of the ordinary," I lied. "It was a normal dinner. We were talking, eating. Then, all of a sudden, Samantha got sick. Did you see anyone approach her glass? A waiter, maybe. Or any of the guests?" I shook my head. "No. I didn't notice anything." "Did you leave the table at any point?" "Just to go to the ladies' room. Maybe 10 minutes. He made a note in his pad. "Did anyone else leave the table?" I thought for a moment. James had stepped out a few times to take calls. My mother-in-law. I think she went to the restroom too at some point. My father-in-law was at the table the whole time as far as I remember. And Samantha. She got up once, I think. I'm not sure exactly when." He nodded. "All right. One last question. Do you know if anyone had any reason to harm Samantha?" I nearly laughed. I had reasons. Plenty of them. 20 years worth. 20 years of cruelty, insults, condescension. "No," I said. "As far as I know, Samantha got along with everyone. She's very well liked." That lie came too easily. Far too easily. "All right," he said, closing his notebook. "If you remember anything else, anything that might help, please don't hesitate to call me." He handed me a card. I walked him to the door, then returned to the living room and collapsed into a chair. Police. An investigation. This was getting real. Too real. If they found a witness who saw me switch the glasses. If they pulled fingerprints from the glass. If Samantha died. No, I couldn't even let myself think that. She wasn't going to die. She couldn't die. That would be too much. Too awful. I glanced at my phone, wondering if I should call James. But what would I even say? And what would he say to me? If he really had tried to poison me, talking to him now would only put me in more danger. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started packing, moving on autopilot. A couple of changes of clothes, my documents, some emergency cash I'd stashed away. I couldn't stay in that house. I couldn't wait around for James to come back. I needed time to think, to figure out what to do next. Once the small bag was packed, I headed downstairs, grabbed my car keys and stepped outside. Just then, my phone rang again from inside my bag. I pulled it out, half expecting to see James's name on the screen, but it was my father-in-law. "Robert," I tried to keep my voice steady. "Emily," his voice was low, tense, almost a whisper. "Are you home alone?" "Yes. James is still at the hospital with Samantha." "I know. Listen to me very carefully. Don't stay there. You need to leave. Right now." I froze. "What? Why? What's going on?" "I can't explain over the phone. Just trust me. You need to go. And be careful. They might be watching you." "They?" "Robert, what are you talking about?" "We'll talk later. For now, just leave. And don't tell anyone where you're going. Not even me." He hung up before I could say another word, leaving me completely shaken. What was that? A warning. From who? And why was Robert suddenly trying to protect me? But there was no time to sit and analyze. I got into the car and pulled out of the driveway. Where to? I didn't have many options. Over the years with James, I'd grown apart from almost everyone I once trusted. His family, his friends, his world, it had all become mine. And Samantha had made sure that my old connections slowly faded away. "They're just not our kind, darling," she used to say in that fake sweet tone. And James would always agree. There was only one person I could turn to. Chloe, an old college friend. We'd stayed in touch all these years, even if we didn't see each other often. She lived in a quiet suburb, in a small house she'd inherited from her grandmother. The last time I'd seen her was about a year ago for her birthday. James had been on a business trip, or at least that's what he told me. I dialed Chloe's number, praying she'd pick up despite the late hour. "Hello?" Her voice was groggy with sleep. "Chloe, it's me, Emily. I'm so sorry for calling this late, but I need your help. Can I come to you? Right now?" She was instantly awake. "Of course. What's going on?" "I'll explain everything when I get there. I don't have anywhere else to go. Come." "I'm here." I ended the call and glanced into the rearview mirror. Was anyone following me? Robert had said they might be watching. But who exactly were they? James, the police, someone else. Once I reached the main road, I made a conscious effort to stay alert. I changed my route multiple times, circled through side streets, stopped the gas stations just to watch, see if anyone pulled in behind me. But everything was quiet. No one seemed to be tailing me. An hour and a half later, I pulled up in front of Chloe's house. She was already on the porch, wrapped in a robe, waiting. "Emily, what's going on?" she asked as soon as I stepped out of the car. "Are you okay?" I shook my head. "No, I'm not okay. Can we go inside? I'll explain everything." We went into the house. Chloe led me to the kitchen and turned on the kettle. "Talk to me," she said, sitting across from me. And I did. I told her everything. From the moment I saw James put something in my glass, to swapping the glasses, to cement the collapsing, the visit from the police officer, and finally, Robert's strange phone call. Chloe listened without interrupting, her eyes widening with every word. "Oh my God, Em," she breathed when I finished. "That's horrifying. Do you really think James tried to poison you?" "I don't know what to think, I admit it. I saw him slip something into my glass. That part is real. But why? Why would he do something like that? We've been married for 20 years. We have a daughter. Yes, we've grown apart lately, but still, this. It just doesn't make sense. And your father-in-law, why would he warn you?" "I don't know. He's always been kinder to me than the rest of the family, but this was different. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he knows what James is planning." Chloe thoughtfully turned her teacup in her hands. "What about life insurance? Do you two have policies?" I nodded. "Yes, both of us. Large ones. James insisted on it a few years ago, said it was standard for people in our financial position." "And who's the beneficiary on yours?" "James, of course." "And I'm listed on his." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "There's your motive. But that's crazy. James doesn't need money. His business is doing well. He earns way more than the payout on my policy." "Are you sure about that? Do you really know his financial situation?" I hesitated. In recent years, James hadn't shared many details about his business. I knew he owned a chain of restaurants and nightclubs and had a few investment ventures. But specifics, no. I wasn't in the loop. Not really, I admit it. But he's never said anything about money problems. We live in a luxury home, have 2 cars, take vacations abroad at least twice a year. He doesn't seem like someone desperate for cash. No, he doesn't. Chloe agreed. But you said yourself, he's been different lately. Maybe his business isn't as stable as it looks. I remembered something. Months ago, James had been unusually tense and irritable. He got a phone call during dinner, apologized and stepped out. When he came back, he looked pale and upset. I asked if everything was okay, and he brushed me off. Just issues with one of the projects. Nothing serious. But that night, he drank far more than usual, and I heard him on the phone late into the night, locked in his office. Maybe, I said. But still, going from financial stress to attempted murder. That's a massive leap. What if he's in love with someone else? Chloe offered. What if he wants a divorce, but doesn't want to split the assets? That thought had already crossed my mind. I'd noticed how James lit up when certain texts popped up on his phone. How he sometimes smiled at the screen when he thought I wasn't watching. How those so-called business dinners started happening more and more often. If that's the case, divorce would be easier than murder, I argued. We have a prenup. If we split up, I get a specific payout, but most of the assets stay with him. What if he didn't even want to pay that? Or what if the prenup has a clause about infidelity? It does, I admit it. If I'm found to have been unfaithful, I get nothing. If he is, I get half of everything. There you go. That's a motive. I shook my head. I still can't believe it. 20 years, Chloe. 20 years together. Could he really have changed that much? People change, Em. Especially when there's money involved, or someone new. We sat in her kitchen until sunrise, running through every possible explanation, trying to piece it all together. Around 6 in the morning my phone rang. James. Don't answer it, Chloe said quickly. You don't know what he knows. Maybe the police already found a witness who saw you switch the glasses. I listened to her and let the phone ring out. A minute later, a message came through. Where are you? Call me. It's urgent. Chloe took the phone from me and powered it off. For now, it's better if you stay off the radar. We need to figure out what's going on before you talk to him. She was right, even though part of me desperately wanted to hear his voice, to ask him straight. Why? Why would you do this? But first, we had to understand what we were dealing with. We decided I'd stay with Chloe for a few days. She lived alone and worked remotely as an interior designer, so my being there wouldn't raise any suspicions. After a breakfast neither of us could stomach, I went to lie down in the guest room. Exhaustion and stress finally caught up to me, and I fell into a heavy, restless sleep. I woke to Chloe shaking my shoulder. Emily, wake up. There's news. I sat up, disoriented. It was already dark outside. What time is it? Almost 8. You slept all day. But that's not important. Turn your phone on. She handed me my phone, and as soon as I powered it up, the notifications flooded in. Missed calls, messages. Mostly from James. A few from Robert. One from Catherine. I opened my daughter's message. Mom, where are you? Dad says he can't reach you. Something happened to Aunt Sam. Please call me. A chill ran down my spine. Chloe, what happened to Samantha? I don't know the full details. I turned your phone on about an hour ago, saw all those messages, and decided to check the news. I found this. She handed me her tablet. A local news site pulled up. The headline read, Sister of Prominent Restaurateur in Critical Condition After Poisoning. I started reading. The article said Samantha Prescott, sister of well-known restaurant owner James Prescott, had been admitted to intensive care following a suspected poisoning during a family dinner. Her condition was listed as critical. The police were investigating, treating the case as a possible deliberate poisoning. Oh my God, I whispered. She's in critical condition. What if she... I couldn't even say the words. What have I done, Chloe? You didn't mean to hurt her, Chloe said firmly. You were protecting yourself. If anyone's to blame, it's James for slipping something into your drink in the first place. But what if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood? What if it was something harmless, vitamins or medicine, and I just assumed? I trailed off, realizing how absurd it sounded. No. That makes no sense. Who puts vitamins into someone's drink in secret? Exactly, Chloe said. But the real question was, what now? Should I stay here? Go to the hospital? Contact James? I sat there, trying to decide. I need to find out how Samantha's doing. And I need to come clean. I can't keep this to myself. If something happens to her, I'll never forgive myself. Wait, Chloe said, stopping me. Let's not rush into anything. First, we need to know exactly what was in that glass. If it was poison, you could be next. But how do we find that out? I have a friend in the police force, an old classmate. I can call him, ask him to look into the case. Quietly. You think he'll help? I helped him once, big time. I think he'll say yes. Chloe grabbed her phone and stepped out of the room. I sat on the bed, staring blankly at the wall. My thoughts were a tangled mess. What should I do? What was the right thing? 10 minutes later, Chloe came back. He'll call back as soon as he finds something out. But it might take a little while. Thank you, I said, squeezing her hand. You're a true friend. I don't know what I'd do without you. Always, she smiled. Now let's figure out what else we can do. I need to call Catherine, I said. She's worried. Chloe nodded. Yeah, but be careful. Don't tell her where you are or what actually happened. Say you had to leave town for something and forgot your phone at home. Or something like that. I dialed my daughter's number. She picked up immediately, like she'd been holding the phone in her hand, waiting. Mom. Finally. Where have you been? Why haven't you answered? Dad's freaking out. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My phone died and I left the charger at home. I'm staying with a friend for a bit. I just needed some fresh air. What friend? Why didn't you tell Dad? Do you know what happened to Aunt Sam? Yes, I heard. It's terrible. How is she? She's still unconscious. The doctor said it was some kind of strong drug. They're doing everything they can, but her voice cracked with tears. Mom, it's so scary. Who would do something like this? I don't know, sweetheart. That's what the investigation is for. How's your dad? He hasn't left Aunt Sam's side. Grandma's there too. Everyone's just waiting for her to wake up. Dad called you like 100 times. He's really worried. Tell him I'm okay. I needed some time alone. After what happened at the restaurant, I was in shock. Okay, I'll tell him. But are you coming home soon? Soon, I lied. I just need a bit of time. All right, Catherine said, though I could hear the doubt in her voice. But call Dad, please. He's really worried. I will. I love you, honey. I love you too, Mom. I hung up and looked at Chloe. She didn't believe me. And I don't blame her. I didn't even believe myself. What matters is you bought yourself time, Chloe said. Now let's figure out what comes next. We went back to the kitchen, made some tea, though neither of us was hungry or even thirsty. We just needed something to do with our hands. If James really tried to poison you, Chloe said, thinking aloud, he must have had a serious reason. Money, another woman, or something else we haven't figured out yet. I've been thinking about it all day, I said, and I still can't wrap my head around it. Sure, our marriage hasn't been perfect lately. We've grown apart. But going that far, what if it's tied to his business? Chloe suggested. What if he's in trouble, debts, threats? Maybe he's involved in something illegal. I paused, thinking. James had always been ambitious. His business took off quickly, especially in the early years. But I'd never really questioned how he managed to rise so fast. I just assumed he was talented and lucky. But what if there was something else behind it? I don't know, I admit it. He never involved me in the details of his work. He used to say he didn't want to worry me, that it was men's business. What about your father-in-law? Is he involved in James's business? He used to be. He helped James get started, gave him the money for his first restaurant. But once things took off, James bought out his share. My father-in-law is retired now. At least, officially. And, unofficially. I don't know. He and James would sometimes lock themselves in the office and talk for hours. But I never asked what about. So why did your father-in-law warn you? Why tell you to get out of the house? That's the strangest part of this whole thing. We were never that close. He was always polite to me, unlike my mother-in-law and Samantha. But that was it. Why would he suddenly try to protect me? Maybe he knows something you don't. Maybe. But what? And why not just tell me directly? Our conversation was interrupted by a call on Chloe's phone. She looked at the screen. It's Mark, my friend, and the police. I'm going to take this, she said, and stepped out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I thought about James, about how we met, how we fell in love, how happy I'd been in the early years of our marriage. When had it all started to unravel? When did he stop being the loving husband and become the man who could put something in my drink? Chloe came back a few minutes later, and I could tell from her face that the news wasn't good. What? I asked, my heart starting to race. They found a strong tranquilizer in Samantha's system. A very high dose. Mixed with alcohol, it could have been fatal. If they hadn't gotten to her in time, she could have died. I felt the blood drain from my face. So, James, really, he wanted to kill me. It looks that way, Chloe said quietly. Mark told me the police are treating this as a possible attempted poisoning. They're interviewing everyone, waiters, other guests, looking for witnesses. They're reviewing the surveillance footage. Cameras, I whispered. If they see me switching the glasses. Yeah, that's a problem. But from what Mark said, they don't have a clear suspect yet. They're checking everyone. James included. And you. Me. Yeah. You were there. You had access to Samantha's glass. And let's be honest. You had reasons not to like her. I shook my head. But I would never do something like that. Not on my own. I know that. But the police don't. They're keeping all possibilities open. I buried my face in my hands. What am I supposed to do, Chloe? If they find proof I swapped the glasses, they'll arrest me. But if I confess that I saw James putting something in mine and switched them because of that, no one's going to believe me. I have no proof. There's one more thing, Chloe said, her voice even more serious now. Mark said your husband has been asking around about you. He's come by the station multiple times, asking if anyone's seen you. Told them he's really worried because you disappeared after what happened to his sister. He's looking for me, I said, not as a question, but a fact. Yes. And from what it sounds like, he's being very deliberate about it. Mark said your husband looks genuinely worried. But, she paused. But what? But Mark also said it seemed like James was more concerned about where you were and what you might have told the police than about your actual well-being. We both fell silent, letting that sink in. A chill ran down my spine. James was looking for me, not just because he was worried, but because he was afraid. Afraid I might talk. Mark also said the police requested the restaurant's surveillance footage, Chloe continued. They'll be reviewing it soon. If it shows you switching the glasses, then I'm in serious trouble. I finished for her. I know. But, what am I supposed to do? Go to the police and confess. Say I saw James put something in my drink and swapped glasses because of it. With no proof, it'll just look like a desperate move to protect myself. What about your father-in-law? Chloe asked suddenly. He warned you. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he could back you up. I thought for a moment. Maybe. But I don't know if I can trust him. What if it was a trap? What if he warned me on James's orders just to find out where I'd go? Then why tell you to leave the house? If they wanted to find you, it would have been easier if you stayed put. You're right, I admit it. But then why all the secrecy? Why not just tell me what's going on? Maybe he doesn't know everything himself. Or maybe he's afraid to say too much on the phone. You could meet him in a public place. I shook my head. Too risky. If James is looking for me, he could be watching Robert too. I can't take that chance. So what now? Are you going to keep hiding here, hoping it all blows over? No, I said firmly. I can't live like this. On the run. Scared. I need to face this. I need to understand what's really going on. Just then, my phone rang again. The screen lit up with Robert's name. It's him, I told Chloe. My father-in-law. Answer, she said after a brief pause. But be careful. Don't tell him where you are. I took a deep breath and picked up. Hello? Emily? Robert's voice was tight, tense. Are you safe? Yes, I replied. I'm with friends. Good. Listen, I need to speak with you. In person. It's important. I'm not sure that's a good idea, I said cautiously. James is looking for me. He might be watching you too. I know. That's why I'm suggesting a neutral location. The New York Public Library, rare book section. It's usually quiet, especially in the evening. I'll be there tomorrow at 6 p.m. Come if you can. There's something I need to tell you. And show you. Show me what? Not over the phone, Emily. Just come if you want the truth. It's not just about you anymore. It's about Catherine too. The mention of my daughter made me tense. What about Catherine? Is she in danger? No, not yet. But, just come. And be careful. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not even your friends. He hung up, leaving me stunned. I looked at Chloe, who was sitting next to me. From her expression, I could tell she'd heard everything. Are you going to go? She asked. I don't know, I admitted honestly. On one hand, I need to know what's happening. On the other, it could be a trap. It's a library, a public place. There will be people, cameras. If it is a trap, it's not a very well-planned one. You're right. But he told me not to tell anyone. Not even you. Why all the secrecy? Maybe he doesn't want anyone else to get caught in the crossfire. If what he knows is really dangerous, maybe he's trying to protect you and the people around you. I paused, thinking. It sounded reasonable. But something still didn't sit right. Something in his voice, in the way he said it. He mentioned Catherine, I said. He said this involves her. What did he mean by that? I don't know, Chloe replied. But if your daughter could be in danger, you have to find out why. I nodded. You're right, I'll go. But I'll be extremely careful. I can go with you, Chloe offered. I'll keep my distance, but I'll be close enough in case something goes wrong. No, I shook my head. He told me to come alone. If he sees you, he might not say what he planned to. And I need to know the truth. All of it. We spent the rest of the evening planning the meeting. I decided to take a taxi to the library so my car wouldn't be spotted. I'd get there early, scope out the area. If anything felt off, I'd leave immediately. Chloe would wait for my call. If she didn't hear from me within an hour after the scheduled meeting, she'd contact the police. The night passed rushlessly. I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying the last few days in my mind. In the morning, we reviewed the plan again. I tried calling the hospital to check on Samantha's condition, but they said they could only release information to immediate family. The day dragged. I was too anxious to read or watch anything. I tried helping Chloe around the house, but she could see how distracted I was and sent me to rest. Finally, it was time to go. I changed into something nondescript, dark jeans, a gray sweater, and a black jacket Chloe lent me. I tied my hair into a bun and put on sunglasses, even though the sky was overcast. Not exactly the perfect disguise, but better than nothing. "Keep your phone on," Chloe said as she walked me to the cab. "And remember, if anything feels off, leave immediately." "I promise," I said, hugging her before getting into the car. On the way to the library, I kept a close eye out the window, watching for any signs I was being followed. But the streets were full of typical evening traffic, and nothing seemed out of place. The driver dropped me off a block from the library, just like I'd asked. I walked the rest of the way, scanning the sidewalks and alleyways as I went. The old stone building towered at the end of the street, its facade worn but dignified, like it held 1,000 secrets. One of them, maybe, was mine. I climbed the wide steps and entered through the main doors. Inside, it was quiet and cool. A few readers sat scattered around the main hall, bent over books or laptops. The librarian behind the counter didn't even glance up as I passed, heading toward the staircase. The rare book section was on the 3rd floor. I walked up slowly, my footsteps careful on the marble. The hallway was empty. I reached the doors to the rare books room and peeked inside. It was a large room with high ceilings and tall windows facing west. The sun was setting, casting everything in a soft golden glow. Shelves created a maze of narrow paths, easy to get lost in. In the far corner, I saw him, my father-in-law. He was sitting at a table, back to the window, his face mostly in shadow. A folder sat open in front of him. I took a deep breath and walked in. He looked up when he heard my steps, his expression a mix of relief and worry. "Emily," he said quietly. "You came." "Yes," I replied, sitting across from him. "I want the truth. All of it." He glanced around the room, as if making sure we were alone, then pushed the folder toward me. "Here, look at this." I opened the folder and saw photos. Dozens of them. James was in every one, always with the same woman. They were having lunch at a restaurant, walking through Central Park, entering a hotel. In some pictures, they were holding hands. In others, they were kissing. "What is this?" I asked, even though the answer was obvious. "James has been cheating on you," my father-in-law said. "For over a year. Her name is Ashley Montgomery. She works at one of his nightclubs. But that's not all." He flipped the page, revealing documents, financial reports, bank statements, contracts. "James's business is collapsing," he continued. "The last 2 years have been a disaster. 3 restaurants have already closed. 2 nightclubs are on the verge of bankruptcy. He's deep in debt. Serious debt. And some of the people he owes aren't the type to wait patiently." I flipped through the documents, trying to process it all. The numbers, the charts, it was all pointing to the same thing. James was on the brink of financial ruin. But what does that have to do with me? Or Catherine? He sighed and pulled another document from inside his blazer pocket. "This," he said. "Your life insurance policy. James increased the payout 6 months ago. $3 million. And he's the sole beneficiary." I took the document with shaking hands. The increase was real, and I remembered signing something. James had told me it was just standard inflation adjustment. I hadn't thought twice. He wanted to kill me for the insurance money. My voice trembled. "But $3 million won't save his business if the debts are that bad." "It's not just about the business," my father-in-law said softly. "There's something else. The house you live in, on paper, it belongs to both of you. But there's a catch. If anything happens to you, your share doesn't go to James. It goes to Catherine. James has been trying to get you to update your will, remember?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, he's brought it up a few times over the past year. Said the paperwork needed to be updated. Routine stuff. I kept putting it off, I was busy. And 2 weeks ago," he continued, "James convinced Catherine to sign a power of attorney. It gives him control over her assets, including any inheritance she might receive." "What?" I stared at him, stunned. "Yes, he told her it was for her own protection. That he'd keep her assets safe from taxes and other issues." She believed him. Of course she did, she always trusted her father. I felt nausea rising in my throat. So if I died, my share of the house would go to Catherine, and with that power of attorney, James could control it. Sell it. Mortgage it. Exactly, he said with a grim nod. Add that to the insurance payout and your personal savings, which would also go to Catherine, and therefore to him. It's more than enough to settle his most dangerous debts. And give him a clean slate. A new beginning, with a new woman, and no burdensome wife. I stared at the documents in front of me, and only one thought kept pounding in my head. He wanted to kill me. My husband wanted to kill me. But, why are you helping me? I asked, lifting my eyes to my father-in-law. You've always been on his side. He gave me a sad smile. I love my son Emily, but I can't let him become a murderer, and I can't let him ruin Catherine's life. She's my granddaughter, and I love her just as much as I love him. And Samantha, did she know about his plan? He nodded. Yes, she always knew all his secrets, and she supported him. She never liked you, thought you weren't good enough for this family. When James told her about his financial problems, she gave him the solution. Get rid of you and collect the money. I remembered the conversation I had overheard months ago. You need to deal with this, James. How long are you going to drag it out? Back then I thought they were talking about business. Now I realized, they were talking about me. I was the problem that needed to be dealt with. What about Elizabeth? Does she know? No. He shook his head. Elizabeth has no idea. Not about the financial trouble, not about James's plan. She thinks you two are just going through a typical rough patch in your marriage, nothing more. So what now? I asked. What am I supposed to do with all of this? You have to protect yourself, he said firmly. And Catherine. I know a good attorney. He can help you sort out the paperwork, revoke the power of attorney Catherine gave James. Secure your assets. You need to go to the police. But I don't have any proof he put something in my glass. Yes, you do. The restaurant surveillance footage. I've seen it. It clearly shows James putting something into your drink. You saw the footage. How? I have contacts at the restaurant. I asked for the footage, told them I was checking to see if a waiter had picked up an expensive pair of cufflinks I'd lost that night. They gave it to me. And what I saw? What was on it? What exactly did it show? James, add something to your wine glass while you're in the ladies' room. Then you come back, sit down. And a little later you switch your glass with Samantha's. I froze. You saw that. And you didn't give the footage to the police? No. I made a copy, but I haven't handed it over, not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Why? Because I need to understand what really happened. Why did you switch the glasses? Did you know James had put something in yours? I nodded. Yes, I saw him. I was standing by the column when I saw him pour something into my glass. And I didn't know what to do. I decided to switch glasses. I didn't want to hurt Samantha, I swear. I just wanted to protect myself. My father-in-law looked at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I believe you. And I think the police will too, especially once they see the footage. But they could accuse me of attempting to poison Samantha. I knew there was something in the glass and I still switched it. It was self-defense, Emily. You didn't know what was in the glass. You were reacting to a threat. Anyone in your place would have done the same. I wasn't sure it was that simple, but I nodded anyway. So what now? Should I go to the police? Yes, he said firmly. And the sooner, the better. James won't stop trying to find you. And when he does, I don't know what he might do. He's desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. I gathered the documents and placed them back into the folder. Thank you. For everything. He gave a sad smile. Don't thank me. I'm just doing what I should have done earlier. Even if it hurts to see what my son has become. We left the library together, but exited through different doors. He gave me the contact information for the lawyer, and urged me once more to go to the police as soon as possible. I promised I would. On the way back to Chloe's, I tried to process everything. It was too much. Too painful. My husband, the father of my child, the man I'd spent 20 years of my life with, had planned to kill me. For money. For another woman. To start a new life without me. Chloe opened the door as soon as I rang the bell. One look at my face, and she knew the news wasn't good. What happened? What did he say? I stepped into the living room, collapsed onto the couch, and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, or shaking her head in disbelief. Oh my God, Em, she said when I finished. That's horrific. I can't believe James could do something like that. I couldn't either. But the documents, the photos, everything Robert told me, it all lines up. So what are you going to do now? I'm going to do what he advised. Go to the police. Tell them everything. Show them the proof. And then, we'll see what happens. What about Catherine? Are you going to tell her? I paused. Catherine adored her father. She'd always been a daddy's girl. How would she handle learning that the man she trusted tried to kill her mother? That he used her, manipulated her into signing over control of everything? I don't know, I said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not all at once. First, I need to deal with the police. The legal stuff. Make sure she's protected. Then, we'll talk. When are you going to the police? Tomorrow morning. Robert said there's a detective I can trust. Captain Ryan. I need to ask for him specifically. Good. Chloe nodded. And I'm coming with you. Don't argue, she added when she saw I was about to protest. You shouldn't be alone for this. I squeezed her hand, grateful beyond words. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. We went to bed early, but once again I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept replaying my marriage to James, all the good moments of the happy days. I searched for signs I might have missed, clues that he had changed, that he could become someone capable of such betrayal. But I found nothing. Or maybe I didn't want to find anything. In the morning, Chloe and I had a quick breakfast, got dressed and headed to the police station. I brought the folder of documents Robert had given me. We were just about to walk out the door when my phone rang. Catherine's name lit up the screen. It's my daughter, I said to Chloe. I have to take this. She nodded and stepped aside to give me some privacy. Hi, sweetheart, I said, trying to sound calm. How are you? Mom. Catherine's voice was tight, scared. Mom, where are you? I'm with a friend. I told you. What's going on? Mom, you have to come. Now. And Sam, she woke up. She's talking. She's saying strange things. About you. About Dad. I felt my heart stop. What is she saying? She said she saw you switch glasses. That you tried to poison her. But then she's also saying all these crazy things about Dad. Like he was trying to. Mom, what is going on? The police are here. They're taking her statement. They asked about you. Mom, please come. I looked over at Chloe, who had turned around, concerned all over her face as she heard the shift in my voice. Catherine, listen to me very carefully. Don't tell anyone where I am. Not the police. Not your father. I'll come soon. But there's something I need to do first. And please, be careful. Don't be alone with your dad. What? Mom, you're scaring me. Why would I be scared of Dad? Just do what I say. Trust me. I'll explain everything when I get there. Right now, I need to make sure you're safe. I hung up and turned to Chloe. Samantha's awake. She saw me switch the glasses. She told the police. Shit, Chloe muttered. That changes everything. Now they have a witness. You're in real danger, Em. Not just me, I said, my voice trembling. Catherine too. If James finds out Samantha told the truth about him, if he realizes his whole plan is unraveling, he's desperate. He might do anything. Then we have to move. Now, Chloe said, resolute. We go straight to the police. Captain Ryan. We show him the documents. Tell him everything. They have to protect you and Catherine. I nodded, trying to steel myself. You're right. There's no other choice. We left the house and got into Chloe's car. I was too shaken to drive myself. On the way to the station, I tried calling Robert, but there was no answer. Maybe he was at the hospital with Samantha, or worse, maybe James had already found out about his betrayal. The police station greeted us with its usual bustle. The officer at the front desk looked at us with the tired indifference of someone who'd seen it all. How can I help you? I need to speak with Captain Ryan, I said. It's urgent. Captain Ryan is busy. If you're here to file a report, I can take it. No. It has to be him. It's about the poisoning case, Samantha Prescott. He should be familiar with it. At the mention of such a high-profile case, the officer straightened up noticeably. Wait here. He picked up the internal phone, murmured something into the receiver, then nodded at us. Go ahead. Second floor, office 206. We climbed the stairs and found the right door. I knocked, my heart pounding in my chest. Come in, came a voice from inside. Captain Ryan was a solid man in his 40s, with sharp eyes and streaks of gray at his temples. He was seated behind a desk cluttered with papers, typing quickly on his computer. "Have a seat," he said, without looking up. "What can I do for you?" "My name is Emily Prescott." I began, trying to steady my voice. "I'm the wife of James Prescott, and the sister-in-law of Samantha Prescott, the woman who was poisoned 3 days ago at the restaurant." That got his attention. He looked up and studied my face. "Emily Prescott, we've been trying to locate you. Where have you been the past few days?" "At a friend's," I said, nodding toward Chloe. "After what happened at the restaurant, I was in shock. And after that, then I found out something that made me fear for my life." Ryan leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Go on." I placed the folder Robert had given me on the desk. "These are documents. Financial records from my husband's business, insurance policies, photographs. Everything that proves my husband James Prescott was planning to kill me." Ryan raised his eyebrows, but said nothing. He opened the folder and began reviewing the contents. "That night at the restaurant," I continued, "I saw James pour something into my wine glass when he thought I was looking. I decided to switch glasses, mine with his sister Samantha's. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how dangerous it might be. I just panicked and tried to protect myself." Ryan looked up from the documents. "You knowingly swapped the glasses, aware that yours had been tampered with?" "Yes." I lowered my eyes. I know it wasn't the right thing to do. I should have refused to drink or said something. But I was in shock. I wasn't thinking clearly. "Samantha Prescott regained consciousness this morning," Ryan said. "She claimed she saw you switch the glasses. But she also said something else. She said your husband planned to kill you, and that she knew about it." I stared at him in disbelief. "She admitted it. But why? Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. The poisoning was severe. She nearly died. Experiences like that tend to shift people." Ryan continued flipping through the documents. "This is all very serious, Emily. Attempted murder, conspiracy, financial fraud. I'll need to take your official statement. And we need to ensure your safety. My daughter, Catherine, she's at the hospital. With Samantha and James. I'm afraid for her." Ryan immediately picked up the phone. "Give me the Juvenile Protection Unit. It's urgent." "She's 19, I said quickly. "She's legally an adult." He nodded and changed his directive. "Then get the response team. We need a unit dispatched to Central Hospital, Samantha Prescott's room. The situation could be volatile." He hung up the phone and looked at me again. "Don't worry. We'll make sure your daughter is safe. Now, let's start from the beginning. I want every detail." For the next 2 hours, I told Captain Ryan everything. About my marriage to James. About his sister Samantha. About how things had changed over the years. What I saw in the restaurant. My decision to switch the glasses. The visit from the officer. Robert's warning. My escape. And finally what I learned yesterday at the library. Ryan listened carefully, taking notes and occasionally asking follow-up questions. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, looking at me thoughtfully. "It's a complicated situation, but we do have evidence. The documents your father-in-law gave us. Samantha Prescott's testimony. The surveillance footage from the restaurant. We've already reviewed it. It clearly shows your husband putting something into your glass, and later, you switching it with Samantha's. It aligns with your version of events." "What happens now?" I asked. "We'll detain your husband for questioning. Given the severity of the allegations and the strength of the evidence, the court will likely hold him in custody during the investigation. You and your daughter will be placed under protection. As for Samantha Prescott, based on her statement and her admission of involvement, she'll also have to face charges once she's recovered." "And me?" I asked. "Will I be arrested for switching the glasses?" Ryan hesitated. "Technically, you acted in self-defense. You were responding to an immediate threat to your life. But the final decision will rest with the prosecution and the court. Honestly, considering all the circumstances, I doubt you'll face any serious charges. Still, we have to follow protocol." Just then, another officer entered the room. "Captain, the team has arrived at the hospital. But James Prescott isn't there, neither is his daughter." I froze. "What? Where are they?" "We're still trying to confirm," the officer said. "Samantha Prescott is in her room under guard. The doctor said James left about an hour ago, right after Samantha gave her statement. He took the girl with him, told them they were heading home. We need to find them now," Ryan said sharply. "Alert all units. Check their residence, the airport, the train stations. He might be trying to flee." My hands clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. "My daughter," He took my daughter. We'll find them, Ryan said firmly. He won't get far. But I couldn't calm down. James was cornered. Desperate. What might he do? Where could he take Catherine? And for what reason? As a hostage? Or something else? And then it hit me. The power of attorney. He still has it. The one Catherine signed, giving him control over her assets, including any inheritance she might receive. If something happens to me, my share of the house goes to her, and he can access it. But now that his plan's been exposed, that won't work, Chloe said, speaking for the first time since we'd entered, her voice quiet but firm. He can't hurt you now without getting caught. Unless he's planning something else, Ryan said grimly. Something we haven't seen coming yet. At that moment, my phone rang. James's name lit up on the screen. I showed it to Captain Ryan. Answer it, he instructed. Put it on speaker. Try to find out where he is and what he's planning. And don't mention the police. I nodded and picked up the call, switching to speaker. James. Emily. His voice was oddly calm. Finally. I was starting to get worried. Where's Catherine? Is she with you? Yes, she's with me. She's fine. Don't worry. I want to talk to her. Later. First, you and I need to talk. Just the two of us. About what? My voice trembled and I did everything I could to keep him from hearing the fear behind it. About our future. About what happened at the restaurant. About what we're going to do now. Samantha's awake. She said a lot. Yes, I know. Catherine called me. Then you understand. We need to meet. Now. I'll be waiting for you at the lake house. The one in the Hamptons. Come alone. No police. No friends. Just you and me. If you're not here in an hour, or if I see any sign of cops. He paused. Let's just say, there will be consequences. You're threatening Catherine. My voice broke. I'm saying we need to talk. Privately. This is a family matter, Emily. And we're going to handle it as a family. All right, I said. I'll come. 1 hour. I'll be waiting. He hung up. I turned to Ryan. You heard him. He's at the lake house. With Catherine. And he wants me to come alone. It's a trap, the captain said. He's desperate. He's cornered. And he's dangerous. I know. But I have to go. My daughter is there. We'll go with you. Discreetly. We'll surround the house. Be ready to act. But you're not going in there alone. It's too risky. If he even suspects we're involved, he could hurt Catherine. We'll be careful, Ryan assured me. My team knows how to stay invisible. But I won't let you walk in there unprotected. I knew Captain Ryan was right. James was cornered, and his entire plan was unraveling. He was capable of anything now. But this was my daughter. I couldn't just sit back and wait for the police to fix everything. All right, I agreed. But let me talk to him. Maybe I can convince him to surrender peacefully. Ryan nodded. We'll give you that chance. But the moment there's any sign of danger, we're going in. No exceptions. Over the next 20 minutes, the plan was laid out. I would drive to the lake house alone, just as James had instructed. The police would follow at a safe distance and surround the property, staying out of sight. I'd be wired with a microphone so they could hear everything happening inside. If things went south, they'd intervene immediately. Before I left, Ryan gave me one final warning. Don't take unnecessary risks. This isn't about being brave. Your job is to buy us time and, if possible, convince him to release your daughter. We'll handle the rest. I nodded, fully aware of what I was walking into. Chloe hugged me tightly before I stepped into the car. Be careful. And remember, you're stronger than you think. The drive to the lake house took about 40 minutes. The whole way there, I was rehearsing what I'd say to James. How I'd look into the eyes of the man I'd loved for 20 years. The man who had tried to kill me. How I'd explain to Catherine that the father she'd worshipped her entire life was not the man she believed him to be. The lake house greeted me with an eerie silence. The large 3-story stone house stood by the lake, surrounded by towering pines. A place that once felt cozy and serene, now looked dark and foreboding. James's car was parked out front. So, they were really here. I parked, checked that the microphone clipped inside my collar was working and stepped out. Taking a deep breath of the crisp forest air, I walked to the door. My hand was trembling as I rang the bell. It opened almost immediately. James stood in the doorway. He looked tired and worn down, like someone who hadn't slept in days. But his eyes were clear, steady, focused. Emily, he said, stepping aside to let me in. I'm glad you came. Where's Catherine? I asked, walking in and glancing around. She's upstairs. In her room. She's exhausted from this whole circus. I want to see her. You will. But first, let's talk. Come into the living room. I walked through the spacious hallway and into the living room. The large windows faced the lake, which now lay still like glass, reflecting the gray autumn sky. James gestured for me to sit in one of the armchairs, but he remained standing. So, he began, his tone disturbingly casual. Samantha told the police she saw you switch glasses, and that I put something into yours. She did, I replied. And it's true. I saw you add something to my drink when you thought I wasn't looking. What was it, James? A sedative. He smiled, but the expression never reached his eyes. A tranquilizer. Strong, but not lethal. At least not for a healthy person. Though combined with alcohol, the effects could have been unpredictable. You wanted to kill me, I said. It wasn't a question, it was a fact. James shrugged. More like I wanted you to go into a deep sleep. In public. With witnesses. It would have been humiliating, but not deadly. Then, maybe next time, under more convenient circumstances, something more effective, more permanent. I stared at him, struggling to comprehend. He spoke of murder like someone discussing dinner plans. Why, James? For the money. The insurance. Her. I meant his mistress. The woman whose photos I'd seen in Robert's folder. For all of it. The money. The freedom. A new life. You know our marriage has been dead for years, Emily. We've been living like roommates. A divorce would have been messy and expensive. I needed something clean and quick. Clean. Killing your wife is a clean solution. Under the right conditions, yes. The business is collapsing. Creditors breathing down my neck. And not the kind you negotiate with. I needed cash. Fast. Your life insurance, your share of the house, your savings. Everything that would have gone to Catherine. And by extension to me. Thanks to the power of attorney. And Samantha knew. She helped you. Of course. We've always been closer to each other than to anyone else. She always had my back. And she never liked you, you know that. What about your father? Did he know? James's face twisted with anger. My father's a traitor. No, he didn't know. At least not all of it. He suspected I was in trouble financially, but he didn't know about the rest. Not until recently. After the restaurant, he started poking around, asking questions. I'm sure he contacted you. I don't know where he is now. Probably at home. I doubt he has the guts to come out against me. I'm still his son. And what do you plan to do now? After Samantha told the police everything, James walked over to the window, staring out at the lake. The plan changed, but the goal's the same. I need money. To start over. And I still have leverage. Catherine, I said quietly. You're using our daughter as leverage. Not exactly. More like a partner. She's an adult, Emily. She can make her own choices. And she's on my side. She always has been. What did you tell her? What lies did you feed her? James turned to me, and for a moment his smile looked almost genuine. I told her the truth. That her mother tried to poison my sister. That you switched the glasses, knowing something was in yours. That you ran instead of staying to help Samantha. That you've always envied our family, our status, our money. And now, you're trying to destroy me to save yourself. And she believed you. She really believes I'm capable of something like that. Not at first. But then Samantha confirmed she saw you switch the glasses. Then the police started asking questions. And you vanished without a word. Yes, she started to believe. I want to speak to her. Now. James nodded. Of course. She's upstairs in her room. Go ahead. I'll wait here. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding. What was I going to say to my daughter? How would I explain everything? And after all her father had told her, would she even believe me? Catherine's room was at the end of the hallway. I knocked, but there was no response. I knocked again, louder. Still, nothing. I slowly pushed the door open, and peeked inside. She wasn't there. The bed was neatly made. A bag sat on top of it, packed as if someone was preparing for a trip. On the nightstand, there was a glass of water and a pill bottle. I picked it up and read the label. A strong sedative. I looked at the water. There was a chalky residue at the bottom. A chill ran down my spine. I rushed to check the other rooms upstairs. All of them were empty. Catherine was gone. Or, A terrifying thought struck me. I ran back downstairs into the living room. James stood by the window, his back to me, staring out at the lake. When he heard my footsteps, he turned around slowly. "Where's Catherine?" I asked, a panic rising in my throat. "She's not upstairs." "Where is she?" "She's exactly where she needs to be," he said calmly. "What did you do to her?" "If you heard her." "Me? Heard my own daughter?" He looked almost offended. "Emily. She's my flesh and blood. I would never harm her." "Then where is she? And why is there a bottle of sedatives in her room?" "Oh, that." He waved a hand dismissively. "Just a mild tranquilizer. She was really shaken up by everything. I gave her something to help her sleep, and took her somewhere more peaceful." "Where? Where did you take her?" "A safe place. Somewhere she can wait out this chaos. Where she'll be well taken care of." "Stop playing games, James. Where is our daughter?" He looked at me with a slight smile as if enjoying my panic. "She's on my yacht. 10 miles offshore. With people I trust. They have clear instructions. If anything happens to me or if I don't contact them at the agreed time, they'll take her far away. Somewhere you and the police won't find her. You kidnapped your own daughter. You're insane." "No. I'm adapting to the situation. Plan it didn't work out. This is plan B. And in this plan, Catherine is the key. What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. Money. Freedom. A fresh start. And you're going to help me get it." "How?" "Simple. You'll sign over all your assets to Catherine, bank accounts, property, stocks, whatever you've got. Everything. And since I have power of attorney, I'll be able to access it all. And if I refuse, then you'll never see our daughter again. She'll disappear forever." I stared at the man I once loved and didn't recognize him at all. How had he become this? How could he use his own daughter in such a vile scheme? "You're bluffing," I said, trying to stay calm. "You won't hurt Catherine. You said you love her." "I do. But I love myself and my freedom more. And if I have to choose between prison and vanishing somewhere new, even without her, I'll choose the latter. You won't stay hidden for long. The police will find you. Maybe. But by then, I'll be gone. With new papers. A new life. You know how easy it is to buy a new identity on the black market. One with legit documents, a full backstory, even a credit history. It's not that expensive. Especially if you have the right connections. And I do." I was stalling for time, hoping the police were hearing everything through the mic and already preparing to act. I just had to keep him talking, dig for details. "So how do you imagine this working?" "I sign over everything, and you let Catherine go." "Not exactly. First, I make sure the transfers go through. That I can access everything. That might take a day or two. Once I'm certain everything's in place, I'll let you know where to find her. Or maybe I'll bring her myself. Depends on the situation. And you expect me to just trust you? After everything you've done? You don't have a choice, Emily. You either trust me, or risk never seeing our daughter again." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself and think clearly. James was cornered, but still dangerous. And he held the one thing I cared about most, a Catherine. "All right," I said finally. "I'll sign the papers. But first, I want to speak to Catherine. I need to know she's okay." James nodded. A reasonable request. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and put it on speaker. "Mike, how are our guests?" "All good, boss," a man's voice answered. "She's still asleep. What should I tell her when she wakes up?" "Nothing. Just stick to the plan. I'll contact you later." He ended the call and looked back at me. "See, she's fine. Just sleeping. The sedative will wear off soon." "That's not proof. I want to talk to her myself. Hear her voice. Later. When she wakes up. Right now, we have paperwork to deal with. Everything's ready. All I need is your signature." He walked over to a desk, opened the briefcase sitting there, and pulled out a folder filled with documents. "It's all straightforward. A transfer of funds from all your accounts to Catherine's. A deed gifting your share of the house to her. And a few other forms related to your assets." I stepped to the desk and began flipping through the documents. It was exactly what he said. Money transfers, a gift deed, stock ownership forms. All made out in Catherine's name. "And what about Samantha?" I asked, trying to stall for time. "She told the police about your plan. She betrayed you." James's face twisted with anger. "Yes, she did. I didn't expect that from her. I always thought she'd stand by me, no matter what. But I guess staring death in the face changes people. She got scared and saved herself by turning me in. And what are you going to do about her? Nothing. Let her live with her betrayal. Let her wake up every day knowing she almost killed her own brother by selling me out. For someone like her, that's worse than death. Just then, I heard something outside, a faint noise. James heard it too. He tensed, stepped quickly to the window, and looked out. "You didn't come alone," he said, his voice turning cold and sharp. "Who's out there?" "The police. I came alone, just like you asked." "Don't lie to me," he growled, grabbing my arm and squeezing until it hurt. "I see them. In the trees. They're surrounding the house. You brought the police." He dragged me toward the window, forcing me to look. And there they were. Dark shapes moving between the trees. Officers taking positions around the house, thinking they were hidden. But they'd underestimated James's vigilance. "You stupid fool," he hissed through clenched teeth. "You thought they'd help you. Thought they'd save Catherine. You'll never see her again." He shoved me away and pulled out his phone. "Mike? Initiate Plan B. Now, I'll contact you when I can." "No," I screamed, lunging for the phone. "Don't hurt her, please." But it was too late. He had already ended the call, and was now staring at me with cold fury. "You ruined everything. I gave you a chance to end this peacefully, and you brought the police. Now deal with the consequences. What are they going to do to her? Where are they taking her?" "Somewhere you and your cop friends will never find her. Maybe South America. Maybe Asia. Somewhere the laws are softer and money solves most problems. She's your daughter, James. How can you do this to her?" "I'm not doing anything to her. You decided her fate with your actions. This is on you, and no one else." Just then, Captain Ryan's voice rang out from a loudspeaker outside. "James Prescott. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Surrender now, and no one gets hurt." James laughed. "See? They don't even realize they've already lost their bargaining chip. They still think Catherine's here, that they can use her to control me. But she's far away now, getting farther by the minute." I stared at him as a wave of fury surged inside me. This man, who I had once loved, was a monster. He was willing to sacrifice his own daughter for money and freedom. He had tried to kill me, framed his own sister, and now threatened Catherine's life. "You won't get away with this," I said quietly. "Even if you run, even if you disappear halfway across the world, I'll find you. And I'll bring her back. No matter what it takes." He smirked. "Strong words. But you've always been weak, Emily. Always leaned on others. On me. On my family. What can you possibly do without us?" "You're nothing. You're wrong. You've always been wrong about me. And that will be your biggest mistake." Ryan's voice boomed again from the speaker outside. "This is your last chance, James Prescott. Come out with your hands up or we're coming in." James looked at me, then at the door, then back again. For the first time since our conversation began, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. He knew he was cornered. There was no way out. "They won't take me alive," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm not spending the rest of my life in prison. James, surrender. It's the only way. No, there's still one more option." He rushed to the desk, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out a gun. I froze, watching as he raised it and pointed it at me. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done a long time ago. Ending our story." I heard glass shatter. The police had begun the breach. James heard it too. He glanced nervously toward the noise, then back at me. "Goodbye, Emily," he said, lifting the gun. Time seemed to stop. I saw his finger tightening on the trigger, the barrel aimed squarely at my chest. In that instant, my entire life flashed before me, my childhood, youth, meeting James, Catherine's birth, 20 years of marriage. And I knew I didn't want to die. Not now. Not while my daughter was still in danger. Not at the hands of a man who had betrayed everything I once believed in. I dove to the side just as he fired. The gunshot rang out, deafening. The bullet missed and slammed into the wall. I hit the floor hard, rolled, scrambling for cover behind the sofa. James aimed again, but before he could shoot, the door burst open with a crash and police stormed the room. "Drop the weapon. Now," they shouted. James froze, staring at them, then at me, then back at the officers. His face twisted with rage and despair. And then, to my horror, he turned the gun on himself. "No!" I screamed, but it was too late. The shot cracked like thunder. James collapsed to the floor. Blood spread quickly across the pale carpet, forming a grotesque halo around his head. I stared at him, stunned, unable to process what had just happened. The man I had spent 20 years of my life with had taken his own life in front of me. My husband. Catherine's father. The officers rushed to him, checked his pulse, but it was obvious. He was gone. Others came to me, helped me to my feet. "Are you hurt?" they asked. But I couldn't answer. My eyes stayed locked on James's lifeless body, and one thought echoed in my mind: Catherine? Where was my Catherine? Captain Ryan entered the room, quickly assessing the scene before walking over to me. "Emily, are you injured?" I shook my head. "No." "But Catherine?" "He sent her away on a yacht. We need to find her. Now." Ryan nodded. We heard the entire conversation. "The operation's already underway. The Coast Guard and helicopters are searching for the yacht. We'll find her. I promise." "You don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "He told them to initiate Plan B. I don't know what that means, but it sounded dangerous. They could be taking her anywhere. Then we need to move fast." "And we are. But we need more details. What do you know about the yacht? Its name, description?" I tried to focus, forcing myself to recall everything I knew about James's boat. "It's called Ocean Star. White, about 80 feet long. He kept it at the Breeze Yacht Club, on the East Shore." "Good," Ryan said, nodding. "That helps. We'll get that to the Coast Guard right away. But now, you need to get out of here. The scene has to be secured for investigators." I nodded slowly, my body moving on autopilot as I let them guide me out of the house, leaving behind the wreckage of the man I once knew. But my thoughts were far away, somewhere offshore, where my daughter was drifting into the unknown. He walked me outside, where police cars, an ambulance, and even a news van had already gathered. Reporters pushed forward, trying to get closer, but a police barrier kept them back. I got into Ryan's car, and we pulled away from the house. I felt hollow, terrified. James was dead. Catherine was missing. My entire life was collapsing around me, and I had no idea how to piece it back together. "What happens now?" I asked, staring out the window at the trees rushing by. "We're heading to the station. You'll need to give an official statement. Then we wait for news from the Coast Guard. They'll find the yacht, Emily. They'll find your daughter." I nodded, unable to speak. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe that I'd see Catherine soon. But fear gripped my heart like ice. What if Plan B had already been set in motion? What if they'd taken her somewhere we'd never find? At the station, I answered the investigators' questions on autopilot, signed documents, sipped the coffee they handed me. Everything was a blur. I couldn't think of anything but Catherine. Where was she? What was happening to her? Did she know her father was dead? A few hours later, Ryan walked into the interview room. One look at his face told me he had news. "Did they find her?" I asked, jumping up. "They found the yacht," he said. "The Coast Guard located it 12 miles offshore. But there was no one on board." "What do you mean, no one?" "Catherine was supposed to be there. And those men, Mike. The boat was empty. No signs of your daughter or anyone else. Just a note." "What kind of note?" Ryan pulled a plastic evidence bag from his pocket. Inside was a folded piece of paper. "Our forensic team already processed it. The fingerprints match a man named Michael Rivera, previously convicted for kidnapping and extortion. He was one of your husband's bodyguards." He unfolded the note so I could read it through the plastic. "Plan B. Activated. Cargo transferred. Awaiting further instructions at Point C." I repeated the word, hitting me like a punch. "They're calling my daughter cargo. It's standard jargon in operations like these. Cargo refers to the kidnapping target. Point C is likely a pre-arranged rendezvous point. Where is it?" "What is Point C?" "We don't know yet. But we're working on it. We're combing through all of your husband's contacts, his network, the places he frequented. If there's a pattern, we'll find it. But it could take days, maybe weeks. And what about Catherine in the meantime? What will they do to her? As long as she's useful to them, they'll keep her safe. They're waiting for orders from your husband. Orders that will never come because he's dead. That gives us the advantage. Time. Or the opposite," I countered. "When they realize James isn't going to contact them, they might panic. They could do something reckless. They could get rid of her." Ryan looked at me with deep concern. "I understand your fear. But these men are professionals. They won't act on emotion. They'll wait. And we have one card they don't know about. What card? Your husband's phone. We can use it to reach out to the kidnappers, pretend James is still alive. Set up a meeting for a money drop. And when they show up, we take them down. I hesitated. The plan was risky, but it was a plan. And you really think they'll believe it? That they won't suspect anything? We'll be careful. We'll use messages only, no calls. If they've seen news about your husband's death, we'll claim it was disinformation, something leaked to throw off law enforcement. It could work. And if it doesn't, what if they get suspicious? Then we move to plan B. We continue tracking through other channels. We'll search every known safehouse, contact every known associate. Sooner or later we'll find them. Sooner or later, I repeat it. And what happens to Catherine in the meantime? Ryan didn't answer. He had nothing comforting to say. We both knew. Time was our enemy. The longer Catherine stayed in their hands, the slimmer the chances of getting her back safely. I want in on the operation, I said firmly. I want to know everything. Every step, every decision. That's against protocol. You're a civilian, Anne. She's my daughter. And if you want my full cooperation, if you want my help in any way I can give it, you'll keep me informed. Non-negotiable. Ryan studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right. But you have to promise. No interference in the operation. No acting on your own. No contact with the kidnappers unless it goes through us. Understood? Yes, I promise. Just then, there was a knock at the door, and a young officer stepped inside. Captain, you've got a call. They say it's urgent. Ryan stepped out, leaving me alone in the office. I stared out the window at the city lights flickering to life, people hurrying home from work. An ordinary evening, for everyone but me. For me, this day had become a nightmare with no clear escape. He returned a few minutes later, and the look on his face told me everything. What is it? I asked, my heart beginning to pound. We got a tip from one of our informants. It seems your husband owed a large sum to a certain group of people. The kind of people you don't want to be in debt to. And they might be involved in Catherine's abduction. What kind of people? An organized crime syndicate, specializing in racketeering and illegal gambling. According to what we know, your husband owed them around $5 million, money he didn't have. And they took Catherine as collateral until he paid it back. Possibly. Or maybe she's part of a different plan altogether. We're still digging through the details. I sank into the chair, feeling the strength drain from my body. $5 million. I don't have anything close to that. This isn't about paying a ransom, Ryan said quickly. We don't negotiate with criminals. We'll find your daughter and bring her home. No deals. But I heard the hesitation in his voice. He didn't believe what he was saying, not completely. If Catherine was really in the hands of an organized crime ring, every minute counted, and our odds were dwindling. What do? I asked, tears threatening to spill over. Tell me what I can do to bring my daughter back. Ryan sat across from me, his expression grave. Help us find point C. Think. Was there a place that meant something to your husband? Somewhere significant. Maybe connected to the letter C. I closed my eyes and tried to focus. A place tied to the letter C, Crystal Bay. Where we used to walk sometimes. Cedar Park. The little garden James built in our backyard. Chanel, his favorite place to take me shopping. And then it hit me. Hugo Lake. We used to go there. We had a summer house. James loved that place. He used to say it was the only place where he felt at peace. When was the last time you were there? Not in the past few years. James said the house needed too many repairs, that it wasn't worth keeping it up in such a remote spot. I thought maybe he even sold it. But I'm not sure. Do you remember the address? Yes. Cedar Falls Village. Pine Road. Number 7. It's about an hour from the city. Ryan immediately grabbed his phone and began issuing orders. I listened as he coordinated the operation, deploying the tactical team, requesting intel on the house and surrounding area. And I prayed that my hunch was right, that Catherine was there, that she was safe. When he finished the call, he turned to me. We're heading there now. The tactical unit will arrive in an hour. They'll surround the property, conduct reconnaissance, and if Catherine is inside, we'll get her out. You'll stay here, under guard. I'll keep you updated. No, I said firmly. I'm going with you. That's not possible. This is a police operation, not a family trip. It could be dangerous. I'm not asking to join the raid. I just need to be nearby. I'll wait in the car if I have to. But I need to be there when you find my daughter. I need to see that she's okay." Ryan looked like he wanted to argue, but after seeing my determination, he relented. "All right. But you'll remain at a safe distance, under protection. And you will not interfere with the operation. Promise me that." "I promise." We left 20 minutes later. I sat in the back seat of a police vehicle. Ryan in the front beside the driver. Several unmarked cars followed behind us. The tactical team had already been dispatched ahead of us to prep the area. The drive felt endless. Every minute stretched like an hour. I stared out the window at the darkening woods, wondering what lay ahead. Would we find Catherine? Or would it be another dead end? Ryan stayed on the line with command the entire ride. Every now and then, he turned slightly to update me. The teams arrived. They're doing recon now. Gathering intel. Finally, we turned off the main road onto a narrow forest path. A few kilometers in, we pulled into a clearing where several unmarked police vehicles were already parked. "Wait here," Ryan said, stepping out of the car. He walked over to a group of officers huddled near one of the vehicles, leaning over something. I realized it was a map. They were going over the plan. I sat frozen in the back seat, unable to take my eyes off them. They pointed, nodded, moved their hands across the map. Then Ryan broke away and returned to me. "The house is under surveillance," he said, sliding into the back seat beside me. Our team saw movement inside. At least 3 men. Possibly a woman or a girl. But we can't confirm, it's hard to tell, the windows are covered. "It has to be Catherine," I said with rising hope. "It has to be her." We're hopeful. The team is moving into position now. Once they're ready, we'll initiate. How will it go down? We'll attempt contact first. Give them a chance to surrender peacefully. If they don't respond, we go in. But we'll proceed with extreme caution. There may be a hostage inside. I nodded, my heartbeat pounding in my chest. The minutes dragged by. Ryan exchanged rapid updates through his radio, issuing short, calm commands. Then he turned to me. "They're ready. It's about to start." I held my breath, staring into the trees. The house wasn't visible from our position. Suddenly, a loud, amplified voice broke through the stillness of the night forest. "This is the police. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up. This is your only chance." Silence. No reply. No movement. I repeat. "The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up, or we will enter by force." Still, nothing. Ryan responded into his radio, listened, then turned to me. "They're not responding. We're going in." I nodded, unable to speak. The next moment, the silence of the night shattered. Gunfire. One shot, then another, then a rapid burst. Shouts, footsteps, more shots. "What's happening?" I asked, horrified. "They're resisting," Ryan said grimly. "They opened fire on our team. And Catherine." "What about Catherine?" "I don't know. We're waiting for updates." The firefight lasted several more minutes before finally falling silent. Ryan listened intently to his radio, his face tight with focus. "The house is secure," he said at last. 2 of them are down. One's been captured. They're searching for any hostages." I held my breath. Each second stretched endlessly. Then Ryan's radio crackled to life. "We found a girl inside," a voice reported. "Unconscious, but alive. Seems to be under heavy sedation. Requesting medical assistance." "Is it her?" I asked, tears welling in my eyes. "Is it Catherine?" "We'll confirm now," Ryan said into the radio. Description: female, around 18 or 19 years old. Blonde hair. Medium height. Wearing jeans and a light blue blouse. No visible injuries. "That's her," I cried. "That's Catherine. Is she okay?" "Looks like it." Ryan nodded. "Ambulance is en route. They'll take her to the hospital to be checked out. I need to see her. Right now." "Of course. Come with me." We got out of the car and hurried toward the house. On the way, we passed officers escorting a man in handcuffs, one of the kidnappers who had survived the raid. I gave him a sharp, hate-filled glance as I walked past. The house was small, single-story, with a porch facing the lake. I remembered coming here on weekends with James, watching Catherine run along the shore collecting shells when she was little. It had been a place full of happy memories. Now it was marked by tragedy. Inside, the place was a wreck. Furniture overturned, shattered glass on the floor, bullet holes in the walls. In the living room, Catherine lay on a couch while a medic from the team checked her pulse and pupils. Catherine. I rushed to her, dropping to my knees beside the couch. Her face was pale, but her breathing was steady. The medic stepped back to give me space. "She's okay," he said. "Just sedated. She'll wake up soon." I stroked her hair, her cheeks, whispering her name. Tears streamed down my face. But they were tears of relief. My daughter was alive. She was safe. Ryan stood nearby, watching quietly, a look of deep satisfaction on his face. "Ambulance will be here in 10 minutes. We'll take you both to the hospital." "Thank you," I said without looking away from Catherine's face. "Thank you for everything. Just doing my job," he replied. "But it's not over yet. We've still got to question the man we captured. Find out everything. Who planned this? Who gave the orders?" "I know who was behind it," I said softly. "My husband. The man I trusted for 20 years. Ryan said nothing. He knew there were no words that could ease this kind of pain. The betrayal of someone you once trusted with your whole life. It's a wound that doesn't heal quickly, if it ever does. A few minutes later, the ambulance arrived. The medics gently lifted Catherine onto a stretcher and loaded her into the vehicle. I climbed in beside her, holding her hand. On the way to the hospital, she began to stir. Her eyelids fluttered, and slowly she opened her eyes. "Mom." Her voice was weak, but to me, it was the most beautiful sound in the world. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe now. Everything's okay. What happened? Where's Dad?" I froze, unsure how to respond. How could I tell her her father was dead? That he had tried to use her as a pawn in his scheme? "Later," I said gently. "We'll talk about everything later. Right now, you need to rest." She nodded faintly and drifted back to sleep, still under the lingering effects of the sedative. At the hospital, Catherine was examined thoroughly. Blood tests, full checkup, every precaution. The doctors reassured me she was fine, that the sedative had been strong but not harmful, and that she'd be fully awake in a few hours. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, watching her sleep. My thoughts were racing. What would I say when she woke up? How would I explain that her father was gone? That he had tried to kill me? That he had used her in his plan? Ryan stepped into the room around midnight. He looked tired, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. "How is she?" he asked quietly, nodding toward the sleeping Catherine. "The doctors say she's okay. She'll be discharged tomorrow." "That's good news. I've got some news too." We questioned the man we captured. He talked. What did he say? "Your husband really did owe a large debt to an organized crime group. They were threatening him, pushing hard for repayment. At first, he planned to pay them off using the money from your life insurance. When that plan failed, he moved to plan B, using Catherine as leverage to get you to sign over all your assets. But the creditors grew impatient. They wanted their money immediately. So they took matters into their own hands." "What do you mean?" I looked at Ryan, confused. "The men who held Catherine, they weren't working for your husband. They were working for the creditors. They abducted her not on James's orders, but to pressure him directly. Their plan was to force him to pay up by threatening her." I was stunned. "So James didn't order them to take Catherine?" "No. According to what we've learned, he was double-crossed by his own people. That man Mike, the one he trusted to guard Catherine, he was actually working for the creditors. His job was to spy on James and report his plans. When the opportunity came, he kidnapped Catherine not to execute James's plan, but to use her against him. Then James didn't know where she was. He thought she was on the yacht, but in reality, she was brought here, to this house, almost immediately. The yacht was just a diversion." I sat back, trying to absorb it all. In the end, James had become a victim of his own schemes. The criminals he got involved with had betrayed him, turned his own daughter into a weapon against him. The irony was cruel. What's going to happen to the kidnappers? To this criminal group? We're working on it. We've got testimony. We've got evidence. We'll get to them. It's only a matter of time. In the meantime, you and Catherine will be under protection, just in case." I nodded, deeply grateful. "Thank you. For everything." Ryan gave a faint smile. "Just doing my job. Get some rest. You both need it after everything you've been through." He left, leaving me alone with my daughter. I watched her sleeping face, so peaceful, and thought about what lay ahead. The death of her father, the betrayal, the crumbling of everything she once believed in. It wouldn't be easy for either of us. Catherine woke up in the morning. She looked confused, glancing around the hospital room with wide eyes. "Mom, What's going on? Why am I in a hospital? I squeezed her hand, bracing myself. Sweetheart, a lot has happened. You were kidnapped. But you're safe now. Everything's okay. Kidnapped. By who? Why? Where's Dad? Does he know what happened to me? I took a deep breath. The moment I'd been dreading had come. Catherine, honey, your father, he's gone. He passed away. She stared at me, wide-eyed, not comprehending. What? No, that's not true. I saw him yesterday. He said we were going home. He gave me something for a headache, and then I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was at the lake house at Cayuga. I know. Honey, your dad was in a very bad place. He owed a lot of money to dangerous people. And he made a lot of terrible choices. What do you mean? What kind of choices? I didn't know how much to tell her now. Was she ready for the whole truth? That her father had tried to kill me. That he used her, tricked her into signing over control of her assets. He was desperate, Catherine. He didn't see a way out. And when the police came to arrest him, he took his own life. Catherine shook her head as tears streamed down her cheeks. No, I don't believe you. Dad wouldn't do that. He wouldn't leave me. Leave us. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her body tremble in my arms. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. She cried for a long time, unable to process, unable to accept. I held her like I had when she was little, stroking her hair, whispering empty words of comfort, words that felt powerless against the weight of this loss. Finally, she pulled back and wiped her tears. What now? What are we going to do? We're going to live, I said softly. One day at a time. We'll get through this, together. I promise. She nodded, unable to speak. I could see 1,000 questions in her eyes. 1,000 things she wanted to say. But now wasn't the time for details. It was a time for silence, for grieving, for beginning to understand the loss. Catherine was discharged that afternoon. We couldn't return to our home, the investigation was still ongoing, and the memories were too painful. Chloe offered to take us in, and we gratefully accepted. The first few days were the hardest. Catherine cried often, or sat in silence, staring blankly. She barely ate, hardly slept. I stayed close, offering what support I could, but I knew something she had to go through on her own. On the third day, she started asking questions. Why did Dad owe money? Who did he owe it to? Why didn't he ask for help? What happened at the restaurant that night? Why was Aunt Sam poisoned? I answered honestly, but without too much detail. I told her father's business had fallen on hard times, that he got involved with people he shouldn't have. I told her that Aunt Sam accidentally drank something that wasn't meant for her. But I didn't say that it was meant for me. That her father had planned to kill me. She wasn't ready for that truth. Maybe she never would be. On the 5th day, Ryan called. He informed me that James's funeral was scheduled for the next day. The arrangements were being handled by his relatives, including Robert. Samantha was still in the hospital but recovering well. She had given an official statement against her brother, confirming she knew about his plans for me. Will you be attending the funeral? Ryan asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. I'm not sure I can. And I'm not sure it would be right, after everything that happened. I understand. What about Catherine? She wants to go. She says she needs to say goodbye to him. No matter who he was still her father. And she loved him. We'll have security there, just in case. Thank you. The next morning, Catherine and I stood in front of the mirror in Chloe's hallway. Both of us dressed in black. Pale faces. I still swollen from crying. I looked at my daughter and saw how much she'd grown in just a few days. The carefree girl was gone. In her place stood a young woman who now knew what betrayal and loss really meant. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked. She nodded. Yes, I have to. He was still my dad. And I loved him. I know, sweetheart. I loved him once too. We drove to the cemetery where the ceremony was being held. Ryan's car met us at the gate, and a plainclothes officer escorted us to the burial site. There weren't many people, some of James's colleagues, a few distant relatives, and Robert, standing alone by the grave. When we approached, he looked up. His face was drawn, his eyes hollow. He gave us a small nod but said nothing. What could be said in a moment like that? The ceremony was brief and quiet. No long eulogies, no heartfelt speeches, just a farewell to a man who left too soon, too tragically, and with too many questions left behind. After the service, Robert came up to us. "May I speak with you alone, Emily?" he asked quietly. I nodded to Catherine to wait by the car and turned to my father-in-law. "I'm listening." "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, looking me in the eye. "For everything my son did. For everything you had to go through. I didn't know it would go this far. By the time I realized it was too late." "You're not to blame," I told him. "You tried to warn me. You helped me. Too late. Too little. I should have stopped him earlier. I should have seen where he was heading. He was always ambitious, always chasing more. But I never thought he'd become capable of something like this. None of us did. Not even me, and I lived with him for 20 years. He stood silently for a moment, staring at the fresh grave. "What will you do now?" "I don't know. Try to rebuild. Help Catherine get through this, one day at a time. If you ever need anything at all, I'll help." "Thank you. I appreciate it. Catherine does too." We said goodbye, and I walked back to the car where my daughter was waiting. She looked at me with a silent question, but I just shook my head. Not now. Not here. Not among graves and grief. On the way home, Catherine suddenly asked, "Mom, what happened to Aunt Sam? That was Dad, wasn't it? He tried to poison her." I froze. How did she know? What had she seen? "Why do you think that?" I asked. "I'm not blind, Mom. And I'm not stupid. I saw him drop something into a glass. I thought it was a joke or some weird prank. But then Aunt Sam got sick, and I started to suspect something. And when she was in the hospital, saying Dad wanted to hurt someone, and that you switched the glasses, I put it together. I didn't know what to say. How do you tell your daughter that her father tried to kill her mother?" "It's true, isn't it?" Catherine continued. "He tried to kill you. And you switched the glasses with Aunt Sam's, not knowing what was in it. You were just protecting yourself." I couldn't speak. Tears welled in my eyes. This was the moment I'd feared most, the moment my daughter would have to face the full truth about her father. "Yes," I said at last. "It's true. I saw him pour something into my glass when he thought I wasn't looking. I was scared. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to do. I switched the glasses without thinking. It was instinct. Maybe it wasn't the right choice, but in that moment, I was just trying to survive." Catherine stared silently out the window. Her face was still, but I saw a tear sliding down her cheek. "Why did he want to kill you?" she asked quietly. I sighed. "Money. His business was falling apart. He was deep in debt. My life insurance, my share of the house, everything would have gone to you. And he had that power of attorney you signed, remember? The one he said was to protect your assets from taxes. With it, he could control everything that came to you from me. So he used me to get to your money." "Yes, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I held her, trying to comfort her, though I knew there were no words to mend that kind of wound. The betrayal of a father she had idolized her whole life was a blow too heavy to bear. "I'm so sorry, Catherine. Sorry you have to go through this. Don't apologize," she said, wiping her tears. "It's not your fault. It's him. He ruined everything." We returned to Chloe's, both exhausted, emotionally drained. Chloe met us with warm tea and gentle compassion, asking no questions. Catherine went straight to her room, saying she needed to be alone. I didn't push, as she needed space to process. "How is she?" Chloe asked when we were alone. "Devastated. She knows the truth about her father, about what he tried to do to me, about how he used her. It's just too much. She's a strong girl. And she has you. You'll get through this." "I hope so. But how do you live with something like that? How do I help her move forward?" "One day at a time," Chloe said. "That's how we all get through tragedy. One day at a time." The next morning, Catherine came to breakfast with puffy eyes but a determined expression. "I want to revoke the power of attorney," she said. "The one I gave Dad. I don't want anyone else controlling my money or property but me." "Of course," I nodded. "We can take care of that today if you'd like. And one more thing. I want to know everything. The full truth. No more hiding. I have a right to know." I looked at her, so young, yet so resolute. She was right. She deserved to know. "All right. But it won't be easy. I know. But I need to understand. I need to know how he became that man." That day we went to the lawyer Ryan had recommended. The power of attorney was revoked quickly. Then the attorney explained what would happen with James's estate after his death. By law, his estate is split between the two of you, he said, looking at us both. As his wife and daughter, you are first in line to inherit. But there's a catch. Your husband's business is in serious trouble. His debts exceed his assets. If you accept the inheritance, you also inherit the debts. What do you suggest? I asked. Refuse the inheritance. Both of you. That will protect you from the creditors. You have your own assets, separate from your husband's business. The house you lived in is jointly owned. But your share is protected. Any accounts in your name are safe. You won't lose them. Catherine and I exchanged a glance and nodded. Neither of us wanted anything to do with what was left of James's life. Too much pain. Too many lies. We refuse, I said. Please prepare the paperwork. On the way home, Catherine asked, what's going to happen to Grandma and Grandpa? And Aunt Sam? I don't know, I answered honestly. Your grandmother will probably stay with Samantha. They've always been close. Robert, he offered to help, but I don't know if we'll stay in close contact. There are just too many memories, too much pain. But Grandpa helped you. He warned you about the danger. Yes, he did. And I'm grateful. Maybe in time, once the wounds have started to heal, we'll see each other again. Sometimes, if you want to. I don't know what I want, Catherine admitted. Everything feels so confusing. I love Dad. I loved our family. And now it's all gone, and I don't know how to feel, who to trust. Trust yourself, I said, gently squeezing her hand. Your heart. Your instincts. They won't let you down. That evening, after Catherine had fallen asleep, emotionally drained from everything, I sat in the kitchen with Chloe, speaking quietly. What are you going to do now? She asked. I don't know. Maybe sell our share of the house. There's too much pain there. Too many memories. I'll find something new. Something just for me and Catherine. And work. Will you go back to the college? Yes, definitely. I need to work. And I love teaching. It gives life some stability, some sense of normal. You're strong, Em. You always have been. You'll get through this. I have to. For Catherine. The next few weeks were filled with paperwork, renouncing the inheritance, sorting out property documents, managing our finances. I returned to work at the college. Catherine decided to take a semester off to process everything, to figure things out. Samantha was discharged from the hospital and left the country immediately, without saying goodbye. I didn't blame her. She was a victim too, a victim of her blind loyalty to her brother, of her willingness to stand by him even in his darkest schemes. And when she realized just how far things had gone, when she nearly became a victim herself, that had to leave a mark. Elizabeth, upon learning the full truth from the police, suffered a heart attack. She survived but became a shadow of her former self. Robert took care of her constantly, never leaving her side. I called him sometimes, just to check in. It was the least I could do for the man who had tried to warn me, who helped save my life. 3 months later, Catherine and I moved into a new apartment. It was small, but bright and cozy. We sold our share of the house and put the money into an account for Catherine, for her future education and independence. I took on a full teaching load at the college, even added extra hours. Work helped keep the memories at bay. Catherine changed too. She grew more serious, more thoughtful. She read books on psychology, trauma, and how people cope with betrayal and grief. She was looking for answers, looking for healing. And slowly, she was finding it. I'm thinking of going back to university next semester, she said one night over dinner. But I want to change my major from economics to psychology. I want to help people who've been through trauma. Like us. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. That's a wonderful idea. You'd make an amazing psychologist. I think it'll help me too, to understand what happened to Dad, why he changed, why he became that person. Some questions may never have answers, sweetheart. Some wounds may never fully heal. But we learn to live with them. We learn to move forward. 6 months later, Ryan called with an update. The investigation into James's creditors was officially closed. Every member of the criminal group had been arrested. The case was over, the final chapter, in a story that had changed our lives. Thank you for everything, I told him. For your help. For your support. Just doing my job. How are you two doing? How's Catherine? We're managing. One day at a time. Glad to hear it. Take care of yourselves, Emily. That evening, I sat on the balcony of our new apartment for a long time, watching the city lights. I thought about my life, about the past, and what might come next. About the 20 years I'd spent with a man who, in the end, betrayed everything I believed in. About my daughter, who, despite everything, was finding the strength to move forward. And about myself, and the strength I discovered in me, strength I never knew I had. Another 6 months passed. Life slowly began to take shape again. Catherine went back to university, now studying psychology. I kept teaching, and was even promoted. We rarely talked about the past anymore. Our focus was on the future. But sometimes, during quiet evenings, the memories would creep in, and we'd just sit together, holding hands, finding comfort in each other's presence. On the anniversary of James's death, we visited his grave. We brought flowers and stood in silence. There were no tears. Those had long since dried up. What remained was a quiet sadness and acceptance of what had happened. "Do you think he ever really loved us?" Catherine asked suddenly. "I mean, truly, at any point." I paused. It was a question I had asked myself many times. I think he did. In his own way. Definitely in the beginning. Then something changed. Maybe money, power. Maybe he just lost himself chasing success. I don't know. But I want to believe that some part of him still loved us, all the way to the end. Catherine nodded. As if that was the answer she had been searching for. I want to believe that too. We walked out of the cemetery in silence. The past was behind us now. What lay ahead was uncertain, but it was ours. Full of possibilities and hope. 6 months later, I ran into Robert at the grocery store. He looked older, friarlier, his shoulders more stooped, but the wisdom in his eyes was still the same. "Emily," he smiled when he saw me. "How are you?" "How's Catherine?" "We're doing well," I said. "And you? How's Elizabeth?" She passed away 3 months ago. Her heart. She never really recovered from everything that happened." "I'm so sorry," I said sincerely. "No need to be. She lived her life the way she thought was right. Just like my son. Just like all of us." He paused for a moment, then added, "Samantha got married. To a man from overseas. She lives in Italy now. Calls, sometimes. Says she's happy. I'm glad for her. Truly. And you? Are you happy, Emily?" I thought for a moment. Was I happy? After everything, was it even possible to feel that way again? "I'm getting there," I said honestly, "one step at a time. I'm learning how to be happy again." He nodded with understanding. That's all any of us can do. Learn to live again. After loss. After betrayal. Learn to trust, to love, to begin again. We said goodbye, and I walked home thinking about his words. Starting over. Maybe that really was the essence of life. The ability to fall and rise again, to lose and to find, to forgive. Not necessarily others, but at least yourself. Catherine came home late from university, but in a cheerful mood. "Mom, remember Brian? The guy from my psych class. He asked me out. A real date, like dinner and everything." Her eyes sparkled, and I smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. When is it?" "Saturday. Will you help me figure out what to wear?" "Of course." We spent the evening going through her closet, laughing, talking, just being mother and daughter. As if our lives had never been shattered by betrayal and loss. And in that moment, I realized. We had made it through. We had survived the worst life could throw at us. And come out stronger. Not unscarred, not untouched, but stronger. Saturday night, after Catherine left for her date, I stayed home and went through old photos. Not out of nostalgia, but with a quiet determination to make peace with the past. To separate the joyful memories from the painful ones. To hold on to what mattered, and let go of what hurt. Among the photos, I found one from 20 years ago, the day James and I got married. We looked so young, so in love, so full of hope. I stared at it for a long time, searching his eyes for signs of who he would become 2 decades later. But all I saw was love and happiness. Maybe that was enough. Maybe there was no point looking for answers where none existed. Maybe I just needed to accept that people change. That love sometimes dies, and even those closest to us can become strangers. I slid the photo back into the album, closed it, and placed it on the highest shelf in the closet. The past was the past. What lay ahead was the future, uncertain, but filled with possibility. Catherine came home late from her date, a soft flush on her cheeks, and a smile I hadn't seen in a very long time. "How did it go?" I asked, pouring her a cup of tea. "Good. Really good. He understands, Mom. About Dad, about everything that happened. He doesn't judge, Doesn't ask too many questions. He just gets it. I'm glad, sweetheart. You deserve someone who understands. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea, quietly talking about her classes, my work, our weekend plans. Just an ordinary conversation between two ordinary people living an ordinary life. And it was exactly what we had both longed for so long. A year after the events that changed our lives, I received a letter. No return address, the handwriting on the envelope unfamiliar. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a key. Small, old, slightly rusted. I unfolded the letter and began to read. Dear Emily, if you're reading this letter, it means I've found the courage to send it. I've spent a long time wondering if I should stir up the past, cause you more pain. But in the end, I decided you have a right to know. You're probably surprised to hear from me, someone who was never kind to you, who always thought you weren't good enough for her brother. I'm not going to ask for forgiveness. What I did is unforgivable. But I want you to know the truth. James didn't plan to kill you, at least, not at first. The idea was mine. When I learned about his financial problems, about the debts, about the fact that his business was on the brink of collapse, I offered him a solution. Simple. Brutal. I told him life would be easier without you, that your life insurance would help pay off the debts, that the power of attorney from Catherine would let him control all the assets. At first, he refused. He was horrified. But I kept pressing. Day after day, week after week. I chipped away at his resistance, told him it was the only way. That he was going to lose everything otherwise. That you never really loved him. That you were with him for the money, the status. I lied. I manipulated. I pushed. Until eventually, he gave in. Until he agreed to my plan. I organized everything. Found the drug, one that wouldn't leave traces. Calculated the dose. Chose the perfect day, your wedding anniversary. A family dinner, everyone together, everyone drinking wine. No one would suspect foul play. But something went wrong. You saw him add something to your glass. You switched our glasses. And I drank what was meant for you. Fitting irony, isn't it? When I woke up in the hospital and found out what had happened, that James was dead, that you and Catherine had gone through hell because of me, I couldn't live with it. I couldn't face you. Or our father. Or myself. So I laughed. I started a new life. I've been trying to make amends, though I know that's impossible. The key I've included with this letter is to a bank deposit box. Father knows which one. Inside, you'll find documents. Proof of my guilt. My confession, notarized and recorded. And something else, results from a medical exam James had, not long before everything happened. He had a brain tumor. Inoperable. The doctors gave him less than a year to live. He never told anyone, not you, not Catherine, not even me. I found the report by accident while going through his papers looking for financial documents. I don't know if that changes anything. If it explains his actions. If it softens my guilt. Probably not. But you deserve the truth, no matter how bitter. I'm not asking you to contact me. I'm not asking for a reply. I just wanted you to know what really happened. And that I deeply regret the role I played in all of it. Sincerely, Samantha. I read the letter several times, unable to believe it. A brain tumor. James had been dying and never told anyone. He chose to become a deceitful manipulator rather than show weakness. It explained everything, his sudden distance, his irritability, his willingness to do anything for money. He knew he was running out of time and wanted to provide for his daughter, to leave her something. But when his business started falling apart and the debts piled up, he saw only one way out, the one Samantha had offered. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. This new information didn't excuse James. It didn't make what he did any less terrible. But it gave me context, a sense of understanding. Maybe even the faintest trace of forgiveness. I held the key, turning it over in my hands, wondering whether to go to the bank. Should I open the box, look at the evidence, read Samantha's confession? Did he need that? Did Catherine? Just then, I heard the front door open. Mom, you home? Catherine walked into the kitchen, smiling, happy. She had changed over the past year, stronger, more confident. She had found her path, her purpose. She'd started a new relationship with someone who valued her, respected her, understood her. What's that? She asked, noticing the letter in my hands. I hesitated for a moment, then folded it and slipped it into my pocket. Nothing important. Just some old bills. She nodded, not pressing further, trusting me. And I realized I didn't want to shatter this new life we had worked so hard to rebuild. I didn't want to bring back pain we had both fought so hard to let go of. Maybe one day, when the wounds had fully healed, when the past no longer stung so sharply, I would show her the letter. Tell her about the safety deposit box, the proof, the man she once called father, and his final, deepest secret. But not now. Now was a time to live in the present. A time to look ahead. A time, finally, to begin to heal. "How was your day?" I asked, tucking the key and let her away. Catherine smiled and began to tell me about her classes, a new project, her weekend plans with Brian. And as I listened, I realized we had made it. We had survived. The worst was behind us. I placed the key in a jewelry box, not forgotten, just set aside. A reminder that truth doesn't always set you free. That sometimes, it's kinder to keep a secret than to reveal it. That forgiveness begins with acceptance. And so we lived, day by day, step by step, learning how to be happy again. Learning to trust, to love, to believe. Learning to begin again. And maybe that was the greatest lesson of all, that even after the deepest betrayal, after the most painful loss, life goes on. And we have the power to shape it. To fill it not with bitterness, but with hope. Not with fear of new wounds, but with the courage to open ourselves to love again. Because in the end, love, true, pure, honest love will always be stronger than betrayal. Stronger than pain. Stronger than death. And with that thought, I finally let go of the past. Let go of the anger. Let go of the hurt. Let go of the man I once loved more than life itself. The man who betrayed everything I believed in. I let him go and forgave him. Not for him, but for me. For my daughter. For our future. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt truly free. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck.